Hello, I'm the Brown Booktuber, and today we're going to be talking about my September wrap-up. Remember to like, subscribe, and share this video with a friend or family. Let me know in the comments if you've read any of the books I'm about to mention. So, the first book I read was a tomb of a book. It actually took me a lot more than just September to read, but you know, I finished in September, so that's why it counts. I read David Copperfield by this little indie author called Charles Dickens. You might have heard of him. So I read this because I'd mentioned to a colleague that I want to get into reading classics, and they were like, oh, well, if you want to get into reading classics, how about you check out David Copperfield? And I was like, okay. And they actually told me when the movie was coming out as well. It's like, okay, well, it's in the cultural zeitgeist, so, you know, I'll pick it up. And also, I actually enjoyed Great Expectations when I studied it in school, so I was like, maybe I'll like this. I'll be honest, it's a bloody long book, man. Those Victorians, they wrote long books. They were so long, and I get it, they were kind of serialized, obviously, but still, man, that's just long. It's long. You know what? It's kind of boring. Not boring. It takes a long time to get going. I like the first section of the book, I'll be honest, was like, this is a drag. The second one, you know what? There was development. Stuff was moving. Part 1 kind of felt like, okay, it was building up to part 2. Part 3 was like, you spent way too long wrapping up, man. You did not need this much to wrap up. But I get it. Victorian times, books were often serialized, released in parts, etc. People didn't have to compete with Squid Game now on Netflix. They just had books and, you know, just the news. I don't think they didn't have radio, but they had books and they had plays, I suppose. But they didn't have Squid Game. That shit's awesome, not gonna lie. So yeah, Great Expectations was not the book I read. I don't know why I kept saying that. Charles Dickens's David Copperfield, pretty good. Definitely better than the movie. I love Dev Patel, but you cannot make that book just a movie. It is way too long. Just ungodly long. Don't do that. Don't. The second book I read this month was The Phone Box at the End of the World by Laura Imai Messina, which is technically, I'm going to count it as our Asian book of the month. Laura Imai Messina lives in Japan. She is Italian. She's moved to Japan. She's lived there for years with her husband, speaks Japanese, has Japanese children, etc. So, you know, I'm going to count it. She's emigrated to Japan, and it's set in Japan. It's about Japanese culture. It's about this... It's based off a real thing, and I'll link to it in the description, but it's about a place called Belgravia, which was where a artist, I believe, of sorts, he basically built this phone box, or put this phone box in his garden, and he put it there to like talk to his cousin who passed away, and it's become almost this shrine / pilgrimage people take, not just in Japan but around the world, to this phone box where they can go and just talk to someone they've lost who they love. This book was sort of inspired by the loss of the 2011 tsunami in Japan, and so many people lost loved ones, friends, family, lovers, etc. In that tsunami, and that's what kind of drove the author to write this book. I actually listened to the audiobook. So the reason I picked up this book is a bit nuts. Basically, I got this book because I was watching Toast of London. And in one episode, Toast of London's a very British show, is shouting at just this random Japanese lady in the street. And him shouting at that Japanese lady is like a key part of the episode. And I was like, oh, is this Japanese lady going to be a recurring character? And throughout the show, I was just Googling people in there because it's a pretty old show. and a lot of the side characters I kind of recognised from later British TV. So I was like, oh, have I seen this actress in something else? I actually hadn't, but I saw in her credentials that she'd won, I believe, like audiobook narrator of the year for the Phone Box at the Edge of the World. Her name is Yuri Naka, and I was just like, the most convoluted way of getting to a book because I watched Toast of London. I don't know, this book I enjoyed. I loved the not just the story was one of a woman going through and dealing with grief and learning to move on with her life almost, and part of that was throughout the book there were little details that were explained in greater detail. So, for example, a little girl is going to school, and it's basically a little girl that she kind of half helps raise because she lost her mother. Basically, it's the chapter before, they're talking about, oh, she's walking to school for the first time. And the next chapter is like a mini chapter being like the things that the little girl drew on her map on her way to school. I think that's just so cute. I recommend this. You know what? I recommend this more than David Copperfield, because David Copperfield is long, whereas this isn't long. I greatly appreciate that. I think I listened to it in maybe 2 days, maybe one. I think it was 2 days, but predominantly throughout one day. Great book, highly recommend it. This was a very weird energy wrap up, wasn't it? Thank you for watching this very weird energy wrap up. Let me know if you've checked out either of these books, or if this has inspired you to check out either of them. Thank you for watching. Like, subscribe, share the video with a friend or family, and as always, I hope you read a great book today.